Let me start with a quick question. How many times have you found out about a bill, regulation, or public statement after someone on your leadership team already saw it? That moment is the opposite of a policy win. And most of the time, it doesn't happen because you weren't paying attention. It happens because your early warning system is really just noise. Today, I want to talk about how to build an early warning system that actually works. One that helps you get ahead of issues without turning your day into an endless stream of alerts. Welcome to Policy Wins, a practical podcast about how modern public affairs teams work. In short, focused episodes, we'll unpack how teams cut through noise, spot early signals, and make smarter decisions using better data, better processes, and better judgment, all in service of winning on policy. I'm Tommy Zai with the Quorum onboarding team, and in each episode, we'll focus on one practical habit that separates teams who react from teams who consistently win. Today, we're talking about how to stop chasing everything and how to build an early warning system you can trust. A lot of teams think early warning means tell me the second something happens. But in public affairs, early isn't a timestamp. Early is lead time for a decision. An early warning system should help you quickly answer three main questions. One, is this relevant to us? Two, how fast could this move? And three, who needs to decide something on this and by when? If your system can't answer those questions, it's not an early warning system, it's just monitoring. And here's the thing, experienced teams already know this, even if they don't say it out loud. Teams don't lose because they lack information. They lose because they missed the signal buried inside too much noise. So the goal isn't to watch everything. The goal is to know where to pay attention and when. The simplest way to think about early warning is as two distinct layers. Layer one is the wide net. This is broad monitoring across issue areas, jurisdictions, and policy conversations that could matter to you. Its job is awareness, not action. Layer two is the decision list. This is a much smaller set of developments that are far enough along that your team might actually need to do something this week. Most teams get into trouble because they collapse these two layers together. They either treat everything like it needs immediate action and then get burnt out, or they stay stuck in awareness mode and miss the moment when something becomes real. Mature teams will separate awareness from action on purpose. That separation is what creates speed later. Here's where early warning gets more interesting and more useful. It's not just about tracking bills and regulations, it's about listening to the conversation around your issues. So, what should you actually be listening for? First, legislators and regulators making statements about your key topics or specific bills, especially outside of formal votes. This might be something like a quote in a press release, a line in a newspaper to constituents, or a social media post reacting to something in the news. Those moments often signal how someone is framing the issue before they've locked in a position. Second, committee hearings where related bills are discussed, even if your specific bill isn't moving yet. Hearings will tell you which arguments are gaining traction, which concerns are being elevated, and which members are starting to engage more deeply. Third, pay attention to what organizations are talking about. If peer organizations, coalitions, or other advocacy groups suddenly start emphasizing or avoiding a topic, that's usually not accidental. It often signals a shift in their strategy or a read on where they think things are headed. Early warning lives in these moments of conversation, not just formal actions. Now, here's the part most teams overlook. Silence is also data. Knowing which committee members are not talking about your issue can be just as valuable as knowing who is talking about it. Silence from key figures can mean a few different things. Maybe that person is genuinely undecided on the issue. Maybe that person knows what their position is, but they're not ready to say it publicly just yet. Maybe they do know what their position on the issue is, and they think it'll be unpopular for them back home, so they're being a bit cagey on the details. Whatever the reason, silence will often tell you where engagement can still matter. If everyone is already talking and making clear what their positions are, chances are they're probably locked in and you're unlikely to sway them. If key players are quiet, that's often where you can still have room to influence the outcome. So early warning isn't just about sound, it's about noticing who's missing from the conversation. The last listening skill I want to highlight is pattern recognition. When you start seeing several members of Congress, especially within the same caucus, using very similar language across different platforms, that is a signal. It often means that statements are being coordinated, messaging is coming from the same source, or the narrative is being intentionally shaped. These patterns tell you a lot about how organized support or opposition might be and where that messaging is originating from. This is where early warning shifts from what happened to what's forming, and that's exactly where experienced teams get ahead. All of this listening feeds back into that second layer I mentioned earlier, the decision list. Not every signal needs action, but some signals earn their way onto this list because they trigger a real question like, do we need to brief leadership on this? Which specific office are we going to engage with? Do we prepare public messaging? Maybe we want to activate our advocates or partners. When every item on your decision list is tied to a decision, not just an update, your team stops forwarding information and starts driving outcomes. An early warning system isn't about more alerts, it's about listening with intent. Listen for what's being said, listen for what's not being said, and watch for patterns that tell you a narrative is forming. When you separate awareness from action and sound from silence, you give yourself the one thing that actually leads to policy wins: time to choose your next move. If your team feels overwhelmed by alerts, or if leadership keeps seeing things before you do, share this episode with the people who own monitoring and decision making. In the next episode, we'll talk about what comes next, how to turn these signals into clear internal decisions fast without oversimplifying the substance. Thanks for listening to Policy Wins.